Hollywood is at it again. Looks like they're doing the exact same thing they did with The Rings of Power and J.R. Tolkien's Second Age. They are now doing it with C.S. Lewis and his The Chronicles of Narnia. If you recall, back when they were first trying to promote The Rings of Power, they rolled out all of these Tolkien scholars to try to justify all of the woke changes that they were making to his Legendarium, and it looks like they're doing that now. We have a C.S. Lewis scholar arguing there are positives for a sex-swapped Aslan. It's just absolutely not true. There are no positives whatsoever. So this scholar is Dr. Crystal Hurd. She wrote this op-ed over at Narnia Web. They say that she is an educator, poet, and researcher from Virginia. Her doctoral research focused on C.S. Lewis as a transformational leader. Talks about she previously served as reviews editor for Sensuk, the C.S. Lewis Journal. She's also written Women and C.S. Lewis, What His Life and Literature Reveal for Today's Culture, the 30 Days with C.S. Lewis, a women's devotional, and then the Leadership of C.S. Lewis, 10 traits to encourage change and growth. So this is the first time I've ever seen this person. I'm not super familiar with her, but I think she is definitely trying to subvert C.S. Lewis's The Chronicles of Narnia, especially the fact that he actually did decide to write these books to evangelize Christianity and the gospel. And she's trying to justify these woke changes that are rumored to be happening with Greta Gerwig and Netflix's production. So just to provide some context, a little over a month ago, it was originally reported that Meryl Streep was being cast to play sex-swapped Aslan. Nexus Point News reported that an offer has been made to Meryl Streep to portray a central character in the series, Aslan the Great Lion. The outlet added Streep is in talks to portray Aslan, who will be female in the series. This report was followed up by one from Deadline, which claimed Oscar winner Meryl Streep is in talks to play Aslan the Great Lion in Greta Gerwig and Netflix's Narnia movie. We have confirmed with sources. Reaction to these rumors has been negative, with a Narnia Web X poll revealing that over 65% of respondents were, quote, extremely concerned about the rumor. Covered this in a previous article and video, and many of the responses to this post were asking for an option that was worse than extremely concerned because they were not happy about this report and rumor at all. So overwhelmingly negative reaction to this. So that brings us to Dr. Crystal Hurd and her editorial over on Narnia Web, where she argues there are positives for sex-swapping Aslan. She first argues that the story is a fantasy story and make-believe, and thus it should not be held to the same standard as catechism. This is a ridiculous argument, given Lewis himself made it abundantly clear the stories were about evangelizing the Christian faith. In the book On Stories and Other Essays in Literature, specifically this one called Sometimes Fairy Stories May Say Best What's to Be Said, he wrote this. Then, of course, the man in me began to have his turn. I thought I saw how stories of this kind could steal past a certain inhibition which had paralyzed much of my own religion in childhood. Why did one find it so hard to feel as one was told one ought to feel about God or about the sufferings of Christ? I thought the chief reason was that one was told one ought to. An obligation to feel can freeze feelings, and reverence itself did harm. The whole subject was associated with lowered voices, almost as if it were something medical. But supposing that by casting all these things into an imaginary world, stripping them of their stained glass and Sunday school associations, one could make them for the first time appear in their real potency. Could one not thus steal past those watchful dragons? I thought one could. So very clear that he was using the Chronicles of Narnia to evangelize the gospel and the Christian faith. I think that's very clear. But Hurd cites that essay to claim that Lewis did not set out to write an overtly Christian tale. She quotes the very beginning of the essay where it says, some people seem to think that I began by asking myself how I could say something about Christianity to children, then fixed on the fairy tale as an instrument, then collected information about child psychology and decided what age group I'd write for, then drew up a list of basic Christian truths and hammered out allegories to embody them. This is all pure moonshine. I couldn't write in that way at all. Everything began with images, a fawn carrying an umbrella, a queen on a sledge, a magnificent lion. At first, there wasn't even anything Christian about them. That element pushed itself in of its own accord. It was part of the bubbling. So obviously, he is clearly talking about that when he first had these images, That's what came to him first. But then he clearly, in that same essay, which we just went over, makes it abundantly clear he did set out to write a Christian tale and to use these books to evangelize the gospel. So she's trying to deceive people here by just sharing this first paragraph, and is outright lying when she says that he did not set out to write an overtly Christian tale, when that is exactly what he did. He just had the images come to him, not in a Christian way. He says he has the image of the lion, he has the woman on the sledge, and then he's got the fawn with the umbrella. But obviously he then took those images and did indeed set out to write a story that would evangelize the gospel. I mean, he makes this is very clear. So I think this woman is intentionally trying to deceive people, and shame on Narnia Web here for even publishing this stuff, for even publishing these lies, because that's what these are. This is just a lie. This is absolute lie. They should never have published this in the first place. We also know that in the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, Aslan informs Edmund and Lucy that they will meet him in their world, but he is known by another name. This is what he says. This is what Aslan says, what Lewis wrote with Aslan saying, "But there I have another name. You must learn to know me by that name. This was the very reason why you were brought to Narnia, that by knowing me here for a little, you may know me better there." It is clear that Lewis is referring to Jesus Christ. So Hurd's claim is objectively not true. Like, Aslan is literally Jesus Christ in the Chronicles of Narnia. If Narnia were real, which we'll get to, he explains this. So it's clearly about evangelizing the gospel. It's literally in the books. From there, Hurd argues that in The Magician's Nephew, Aslan exhibits female traits, given he sings Narnia into existence and then instructs Diggory to retrieve an apple that will heal his mother. She claims it is no stretch of imagination to consider a female character birthing one of the worlds or nursing a sick person back to health. These are, in fact, very feminine qualities. According to convention, both Egyptian and Hindu mythology feature lionesses as symbols of power, community, and fertility. In ancient mythologies, this is nothing novel or extraordinary. This is just a bunch of bunk as well. Aslan singing Narnia into his existence is a clear reference to the book of Genesis, where God creates the world. Jesus Christ, the living God-man, is also the master healer. The idea these are feminine qualities appears to be complete and utter nonsense, used to justify the sex swap, and stems from her apparent refusal to acknowledge the books were created to evangelize Christianity and thus reference it repeatedly. So, I mean, she might have written a bunch of books on C.S. Lewis, but I would never recommend them, given what she's writing here. She seems to be an outright liar, a big deceiver here. So she then points to feminist DEI ideology as a justification for the sex swap. She says, similarly, contemporary fantasy features a menagerie of strong, fierce female characters who have built a following on their own popularity. Perhaps this is why the Netflix series is reconsidering Aslan's voice as a female to align with this trend. After mentioning the pornographic romantasy genre, she then adds, now more than ever, women are reading fantasy and hoping for more depictions in the media that they consume. Installing more females in the story could attract more girls and women to watch the series. Are women wanting more depictions in the media that they consume? I'm not sure that is the case. We see this time and time again. She actually makes the argument that she is not interested in seeing more depictions of women when they're doing sex swapping stuff. Like, she literally argues against what she's saying here later on in the essay. She didn't want a Captain Marvel like Marvel does, where they are sex swapping their characters over and over again, which is what this is doing, which she is now saying this is like somehow a positive. So again, I don't really think this is a positive. This is DEI woke ideology, right? It's definitely not a positive. And as far as her argument on like it somehow attracting more people, this is just a bunch of bunk too. We've seen this with Star Wars, Marvel, and other major franchises, that embracing this DEI ideology has, for the most part, led to declines at the box office as well as total number of viewers. Furthermore, feminist ideology is incompatible with Christianity. Dale O'Leary explains this, saying the feminist analysis is nonsense. Women aren't going to be better off when there are no families. There is no evidence that any of this will work. From the beginning, the goals of feminism were clear: destruction of patriarchy, control of reproduction, including contraception, abortion, and reproductive technologies, destruction of the father-headed family with divorce and illegitimacy made normal. That's exactly what they're trying to do here by sex swapping Aslan. They're trying to destroy the father-headed family, right? And destroy God as a male. all women in the workforce, no man able to support his family, and free 24-hour daycare, destruction of all male institutions, total sexual liberation, including sex for children, homosexuality and bisexuality, destruction of worship of God as Father. That's exactly another point they're trying to do there as well. I mean, so Dale O'Leary, good stuff there, just absolutely obliterating feminism and revealing it for what it is. So it gets even worse. So those are all the positives she lists, right? And so while those are all the positives that she lists for sex swapping Aslan, when she discusses the negatives, she discounts the fact that the stories were purposely made to evangelize the Christian faith. She says this: for fans with no religious preconceptions, this change wouldn't matter. But those who have already established Aslan as a Christ figure would certainly be upset. These associations cannot be untangled now. One cannot alter religious representation and not anticipate some negative feedback. So this is utter nonsense as well, given Lewis himself made it clear that Aslan is Jesus Christ in Narnia. And like, obviously, we already just read that part from the Voyage of the Dawn Treader. But we also have these letters where he makes it clear that that is who he is. In this one letter, he says, if Aslan represented the immaterial deity in the same way in which the giant despair represents despair, he would be an allegorical figure. In reality, however, he is an invention giving an imaginary answer to the question, what might Christ become like if there really were a world like Narnia and he chose to be incarnate and die and rise again in that world as he actually has done in ours? This is not an allegory at all. So pretty clear there that Aslan is literally Jesus if Narnia were a real world. He makes it even more clear in this letter right here, where he's responding to a mother concerned that her son Lawrence was loving Aslan more than Jesus. And he wrote this: Lawrence can't really love Aslan more than Jesus, even if he feels that's what he is doing. The things he loves Aslan for doing or saying are simply the things Jesus really did and said. So that when Lawrence thinks he is loving Aslan, he is really loving Jesus, and perhaps loving him more than he ever did before, because Aslan is Jesus. Like, that is what Lewis is saying. So this idea that her like total assumption is that this is somehow not actually supposed to be written to evangelize the gospel completely falls apart when you read even just these short little letters from Lewis. Nevertheless, she then goes off on a tangent to ask why Lewis chose a lion to begin with. So she's trying to, like, this is supposed to be in the section about negatives. She then just kind of goes off on this tangent about why he chose a lion. She points to a church he attended in his youth, St. Mark's, Dundela, and a winged lion being the symbol of St. Mark. She also points to the lion being a symbol of the English monarchy, as well as being a symbol of Scottish King Robert the Bruce, of which Lewis is descended. But she does not include that Jesus Christ is referred to as the Lion of Judah in Revelation 5:5, which is probably where he actually got this from. Because it says, one of the elders said to me, do not weep. The Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has triumphed, enabling him to open the scroll with its 7 seals. It's clearly Jesus Christ is the Lion of the tribe of Judah, which is why he would be a lion. Like, there's literally a depiction of that right there that you can see. So, I mean, again, this woman claiming to be a Lewis scholar, clearly, I think either she is lying, which I think that's probably what she's doing here. I think she's being completely dishonest and lying to try and justify this. And I have my druthers that this article was paid for by Netflix as part of a campaign to get people to buy into this absolute garbage, which is what it is. So that's what I think is really happening here. Or she's just completely ignorant and has no clue what she's even talking about to begin with. But I think it's the first option, because given the fact that she's written all this stuff, I think she really knows what she's talking about. I mean, she literally has a devotional. So she knows that he's trying to evangelize the gospel, at least in my opinion. So this entire essay appears to be a way of justifying the sex swapping. No justification can be made for it. It is evil. There are no positives for it, given it is a subversion of Lewis's work and the goals he had for it. I think that is very clear. I think that Narnia Web should immediately take this article down. I think they should issue an apology for even publishing it, for even trying to dupe their readers into buying any of the nonsense that it is pushing. I know people will be like, oh, well, she's just trying to be fair and balanced, so she was saying positives and negatives. Like, no, there are no positives. There are no positives for it. If she was actually being objective, if she was actually being committed to the truth, she would admit that there were no positives, and that would actually have been a good article. Instead, she tries to play this game like she is being fair and balanced, And what she's actually really doing is duping people, lying people about what Lewis actually said about his books, what the purpose of them were. And it's just really sad that these people sell out to do this kind of stuff. I don't know why they do it. I don't know why they sell it. They want the clout. They want to sell their books, etc. That's probably the most likely option, but clearly they are willing to compromise on the truth. But we're not going to do that here. We're going to call this stuff out, and we're going to stay committed to the truth. But let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, and to always, always speak the truth.
Why would you be afraid of the people? Why are you not afraid of God instead of man?